So I did my first homework assignment on red meat and its correlation to cancer. I am Alejandro Lynch. And just get into it. So I found an Instagram post here by Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. The post claims that after decades of research, there is still no conclusive link between unprocessed red meat and cancer. The message is presented as if decades of nutrition science have not proven risk. The post suggests public concern is exaggerated or not fully supported by the data. The Instagram post comes from a nutrition focused account and emphasizes the idea that unprocessed meat has not conclusively been linked to cancer. The post directly challenges the idea that meat intake should be limited for cancer prevention by highlighting decades of research without a clear conclusion. The post pushes the view that the danger has been overstated. And you can see the post here. There's multiple slides and a long caption. The health condition is cancer, more specifically colorectal cancer, one of the most common global cancers. Colorectal cancer arises in the colon or rectum and is heavily influenced by dietary and lifestyle patterns. Other cancers linked to red meat intake in research include breast, endometrial, lung, liver. Uh, Colorectal cancer is often studied because food intake can directly influence gut health and carcinogen exposure. So the post focuses on cancer, specifically colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer, again, is a major global health burden strongly influenced by the diet and lifestyle of individuals. Research also explores possible links between intake and cancers such as breast, endometrial, lung, and liver. Colorectal receives the most attention because compounds formed during digestion, such as heme iron and N-nitroso compounds, directly contact the colon and the rectum, creating a biologically plausible pathways for the cancer to develop. The conclusion of the social media post. The Instagram post concludes that unprocessed red meat has not been conclusively linked to cancer. The main message suggests that unprocessed red meat should not be considered a major cancer risk. The conclusion from the Instagram post is quite straightforward. It states that the evidence linking unprocessed red meat to cancer is inconclusive by stressing a lack of definitive proof. The post minimizes concerns and portrays red meat as safer than most headlines would suggest. This is a simplified message that sticks with the public but lacks the specific scientific nuance. The PubMed study with different findings. So this was sourced from the European Journal of Epidemiology, and RR means relative risk. This was a systematic review and a meta-analysis of 148 different prospective studies, finding high red meat intake is associated with the risk, with increased risk of several cancers. And you can see the relative risk of colorectal cancer, 1.22, breast cancer, 1.09, endometrial, 1.25, lung cancer, 1.22, and liver cancer, 1.26. Processed meat has shown to have an even stronger link than just regular red meat. The PubMed study provides a different conclusion, clearly, than the Instagram post. Farvid and his colleagues conducted a systematic review and a meta-analysis combining 148 prospective studies with millions of participants. They found consistent association between higher red meat intake and cancer risk. Colorectal cancer showed one of the clearest patterns, but endometrial, lung, and liver cancers also displayed elevated risks. Processed meats demonstrated an even stronger link. The analysis does not prove causation, but the consistency across such a large population strengthens the association. So you may be asking, why do these results differ? The difference between the social media and the PubMed article are explained by these different outcomes, incidence, so measures of the rate of new cases versus prognosis, the likely outcome. Meat categories, processed versus unprocessed, confounding variables, which is the most important part, the lifestyle, BMI, smoking, alcohol, and fiber intake of the individuals. Population differences, portion size, genetics, and dietary context are also very important. Measurements issues, including food frequency questionnaires and recall bias, definitely played a role too. So differences in findings come from study design and interpretation. Some measures cancer incidence, while others examine prognosis or survival after diagnosis process. Meats consistently shows a higher risk, while unprocessed meat findings are weaker and less consistent. Lifestyle factors such as smoking, alcohol use, and fiber intake overlap with meat consumption and may confound results. Populations also differ in portion sizes, cooking methods such as barbecuing, which build lots of carcinogens on the food, and different dietary backgrounds in general. So the rest of the food that the individuals are consuming, which may or may not be playing a factor. These all will influence the outcomes in these studies. Measurement tools like food frequency questionnaires introduce recall bias and limit the accuracy of those self-reported uh, ways of measurement. The factors explain why one study finds association while another does not. So the overall synthesis, social media tends to simplify things into a yes or a no. Scientific evidence shows modest association that vary by cancer type. It is very clear processed meats carry the strongest risks, and unprocessed meats remains to be debated. Uh, Risk depends on dose, preparation style, and the context of your lifestyle. Uh, so the overall big picture is nuanced. Social media tends to reduce things to simple claims, but scientific evidence shows small yet consistent associations. Processed meats are clearly linked to cancer and carry stronger risks. Unprocessed red meats, there's still room for debate, with some studies showing some association and others finding no effect. Risk is influenced by portion size, preparation method, lifestyle, and even genetic factors. Just like all cancers, very large genetic component. Cancer risk is never absolute, but is shaped by multiple overlapping exposures. So we'll move into the miasma theory hypothetical. So if miasma theory were correct, cancer from red meat would be explained as diseased spread through bad air. That was the miasma theory linked to plague doctors wearing the mask with the bird beak and filling it with flowers to keep the good air in. The intervention would target air quality rather than biological mechanisms. So one intervention, clean air kitchens, tall chimneys for cross ventilation, pulling the bad air out, and herbal fumigations, things like sage lit to help facilitate the removal of cooking vapors. A second intervention would be city planning, urban zoning. Cooking is restricted to outdoor markets or special places that would be littered with fragrant trees planted to disperse odors. And a third intervention would be household practices, air fresheners with citrus, garlic cloves, apple cider vinegar, even coffee bean bowls to trap the bad air and again, ventilation rituals such as opening a window or, as stated earlier, like the herbal fumigations. Um, Again, the miasma theory would work to prevent cancer by removing the bad air instead of the biological aspect of uncontrolled cell growth. Kitchens, again, would have tall chimneys, lots of herbs, lots of ventilation to cleanse these cancer causing cooking vapors. And the city would spread or keep away from the rest of the city these places where meat butcher shops are into open air markets with these uh, large trees that are positive scents to help create air corridors, keeping individuals healthy. Families would carry bundles of garlic, citrus fruits, uh, and those vinegar bowls in almost every indoor place, opening windows after meals to release any foul air. These practices would be viewed as a practical defense against disease if bad air were truly the cause. In conclusion, there's the Instagram post really leaned towards the side of no conclusive link between unprocessed red meat and cancer versus the PubMed analysis had a consistent association across multiple sites. The difference is explained by the confounding variables and study design. The evidence supports modest association rather than a definitive causation. So again, the Instagram post concludes there's no link, and red meat, unprocessed red meat, is never really the cause of cancer. But this PubMed study with over 1 million participants, or not just one, this cross section, this meta-analysis analyzing multiple studies, which in total had millions of participants across all the different studies, had a consistent association with several cancer sites. The difference would arise from outcome measured, confounding variables, and the research design. The best interpretation is that red meat intake is modestly associated with cancer risk, while processed meats are most definitely linked, very strong, very consistent. Here are the references.